Hello and welcome. I guess we can start again because now you can hear me. You couldn't before. Very excited to be hosting this webinar, and we are joined by Dr. Tahir. So the title of the webinar today is "If Not Me, Then Who?" We're going to be discussing how a journey of impact or doing something that you're passionate about can lead to you creating a startup. So my name is Rama Chakaki, and I am the president of Qatar Science and Technology Park, and I'm excited to have Dr. Mohammed Tahir with us today. Dr. Tahir is a world-renowned orthopedic and peripheral nerve surgeon based in London and Baghdad. Welcome, Dr. Tahir. I think we're being slowly joined by Dr. Tahir. Let's see if the team is able to put him on. In the meantime, thank you for including where you are tuning in from in the message. I say we're at 100 participants, and hopefully we'll get Dr. Tahir on board to be able to speak with us. In the meantime, a little bit of a background. For those of you who are not familiar with Dr. Tahir's work, he spent 7 months in Gaza performing nearly 1,200 life-saving surgeries under relentless bombardment, an act of courage that earned him the title Ambassador of Humanity. He currently serves as the chief surgeon of Fajr Global and co-founder and CEO of Humvol, and he'll give us the right pronunciation, promoting humanitarian and volunteering worldwide. All right. If I can get a thumbs up from the team, there you go, Dr. Tahir, welcome. Let's see if we can hear you. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah. How are you?
Wonderful. We could hear you and see you. So we've given the attendees an introduction, and I'm sure for most of them, they're very familiar with your work. We've all seen your narrative on social media. I'd love for us to start by describing what compelled you to go into Gaza and tell us a little bit about your work there.
What made me go to Gaza? It seems like a very simple answer, but also quite a difficult sort of journey there as well. Gaza for me didn't start, of course, on the 7th of October. Gaza for me started in my childhood. It was always a symbol of, Palestine represented liberty and freedom, and they call for human rights and so on. And so that was always something I grew up with my entire life. I used to go to all the protests, and even when I was at university, I occupied a lecture theater with my colleagues at medical school. So it was something ingrained in us, but it was never an opportunity to do anything about, as a doctor, it was never presented to me as something I could ever change or do anything about. And then I found myself at the end of sort of a long career of, I suppose long career training process where I was now a fully fledged surgeon in multiple specialties, in trauma, major trauma, orthopedics, peripheral nerve surgery, plastic surgery, and I was actually in Brazil, in a beautiful place called Florianopolis, an island city. On the surface, I was, living in the closest thing to heaven, you could say. But every single day, I would look at my phone and I would see horror, and I would see children mutilated, and I would see women screaming in pain, and mothers crying out to the world. And this question started to arise in me, which was, if not me, then who? Can I now be the person that relies on everybody else, or must I be the person who takes action? Because this war didn't seem to end. It was month after month of slaughter. And I said, that's it. I can't take any more of this. I got to be that person So I went to London to bid farewell to my mother. I told her I was going to Egypt. I didn't tell her I was going to Gaza. Um, and I started the process of acquiring medical aid and going around and getting people to financially support the medical mission. In those days, we could take about 10 suitcases each of medical equipment, whatever you liked, because it was a crossing from Rafah into Gaza. Of
Mhm.
course, towards the end of the war, that turned into one suitcase, 2.5 kilos of personal food, and $300. In the beginning, it was about $10,000, right? So you can see how that over the course of time, that really shrank. And I actually asked a Egyptian friend of mine, I said, "Hey, do you wanna sponsor my mission?" And he said, "What are you thinking about going to Gaza now?" I said, "Yeah, that's the idea. I've got everything set up." And he said to me, "Hey, listen, this is a bad idea. Rafah is gonna be bombed. You might be trapped inside Gaza, so I really recommend that you don't go." Uh, and it was a little bit of the first sort of really negative experience I had amongst persons that I knew trying to dissuade me. I sort of my response was, "Well, Biden says it's a red line," and he said there's no such thing. And I went back to my friends and I said to my friends, "Look, this is what's being told to me. What are your thoughts?" And everybody was unanimously, "Don't go. This is not the right time.
Mhm.
Maybe give it a bit of time and then see how it's like." And I'm gonna veer off a little bit into the spiritual world here, but it's a necessary part of my story. I was sat by myself, and it was pretty late at night in my mother's home. My father is passed now for 13 years, God rest his soul, and everybody else's family members who have passed. I
Yes.
so I was in my mother's home, and these thoughts started to occur in my mind. You know, what if you go and you're killed? Who will look after you? Who will
Mhm.
look after your mother, rather? What if you go and you lose a limb? What would life look like? Bear in mind, just a couple of weeks prior to leaving, the World Central Kitchen staff were killed in a direct strike. Right? Then you had a whole
Yep.
bunch of foreigners' bodies laid out on the floor and photographs shared across the world. And this was a very real thought, right? At the time, it seemed very real. And life is good, life is beautiful. Do I want to risk it all? Other people are going, you're just one guy. Are you really going to make a difference? And it was like this buildup of really negative thought process. My father, God rest his soul, used to do something called the istikhara when he
Yep.
used to have a difficulty in making a choice. There's types of istikhara. The type of istikhara I used to see him do is when he would open the Quran. So I said, let me do what my father used to do. I prayed 2 rak'at and actually went on my phone and I said, what's the dua for istikhara? Because I didn't know what it was, right? So I
Mhm.
had to go Google it up. I read this, what's the dua for istikhara? And I opened the Quran just for a little bit of inspiration. And the ayah, and I'll say this in Arabic, is that arose, أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم يا أيها الذين آمنوا ما لكم إذا قيل لكم انفروا في سبيل الله اتثاقلتم إلى الأرض أرضيتم بالحياة الدنيا من الآخرة فما متاع الحياة الدنيا في الآخرة إلا قليل. What is wrong with you, believers, when you are called upon the way of Allah that you cling firmly to this earth?
Mhm.
Do you believe that this life is better than the hereafter? For me at that point, that was something I can't describe as a feeling, but it was an experience that sort of rid my heart from fear, and it just gave me as well as the feeling that I had to do this from a humanity point of view, from a affiliation point of view to the land as an Arab, also as a Muslim. It was just another thing that just gave me more wind in my sails and made me go forward and think, I've got to do this.
Mhm.
So I went, and that's the story of how I ended up in Gaza.
Thank you for sharing that. I mean, it's a big contrast, but really, oftentimes founders on their journey, when they're about to embark on a new opportunity that they uh, feel overwhelmed by because it's taking them away from their comfort zone and bringing them into an area, oftentimes they'll be reminded by friends and others, stay within your comfort zone, do what you feel is within reason is what the logic is always about. But this compelling voice inside you that's supported by the spirituality drives you to get out of that comfort zone. And what a journey that you took after that. So in Gaza you were performing surgeries. Tell us a little bit about the humanity around you, what you saw, uh, maybe
Yeah.
from a perspective of you and other workers that were supporting, or volunteers that were coming in to support the community.
Yeah. I met around 15 people for the first time who came from all over the world who joined that particular mission. Everybody was driven by this feeling that we wanted to make the world better, that we couldn't accept the status quo. Very inspirational characters, very well trained doctors and nurses, and and it seemed like it was the beginning of a journey, an expedition almost, like I don't know, without trying to demean the experience, not like necessarily an adventure, but it definitely had that early beginning, that
Mm-hmm.
feeling at the start. And then I remember the first time that I crossed the Rafah border and I went on to the other side and I saw a building that said Dawlat Filistin. And it sort of wasn't something that I was expecting to see. I don't know what I was expecting, but I didn't expect to see like a formal structure of Philistine. And then I looked at this Arab-looking man and I said to him, "Are you Palestinian?" And he said, "Yes." I said, "Am I in Palestine now?" He said, "Yes." And I remember I prostrated, and and he sort of was, very sweet about it. And he'd probably seen this about a million times before.
Mm-hmm.
But it was that was my first experience of entering into the actual physical space of Philistine. And then we went to the first hospital we went to was the European Gaza hospital. And let me tell you, it was no hospital. It was a refugee camp. There
Mm-hmm.
were thousands of people living in squalor in this hospital. The corridors, the stairwells were all divided by bed sheets, and every family had taken a little spot, and people even camped in the courtyards. And of course, these were the people that fled from the carnage of the destruction of Khan Yunis at the time,
Mm-hmm.
because Rafah was still intact for mostly. And then I got to work with the doctors and nurses there, and this was something that I was immediately struck by, and it was how really warm and tender and and kind that they are. They just have there's a temperament. Certain people have a temperament.
Right.
Just have a really beautiful temperament, and they're so welcoming. And I felt instantly like I was at home. They made me
Mm-hmm.
feel like I was one of them. They made me feel that I was, that I'd lived there for 40 years. Um, and it was very easy that when I got there to continue with the same mindset that I had to give my all to help.
Mm-hmm.
And then when Rafah did start getting hit and did start getting bombed and things started to change, then I started to see real pain and real suffering. But at the same time, I started to see real patience and real faith. There was one incident which I'll never forget. There was a mass casualty incident, and we attended to all the sort of injured persons, the critical cases. the life-threatening stuff. And there was obviously many that died, and there were some that sort of were semi-critical. We helped them, and then I did a round amongst those who I would say were, low, low chance of risk, but still injured, right? One guy had an injury to his eye. And I went and looked at him and I said, look, you're doing okay. You've got this eye injury. I'm not an ophthalmologist. You'll need an ophthalmologist to give you an opinion, but you're okay. So
Mhm.
I bid him farewell. The next day I saw him in the operating complex. I was doing some cases and they brought him up to the ophthalmology room. And the ophthalmologist came up to him and literally took the eye patch off, looked at his eye, opened his lid and said, your eye's gone. Matter of fact, your eye's gone. Um, and I was watching this, of course, and his response immediately, this man, rather, you and I would say, "Hey, oh no, what are you going to do? What about my eye and this and that?" And describe his potential. I would be upset, right? But this man didn't do that. This man immediately just expressed gratitude,
Mhm.
and he expressed faith, and it was a really formative experience. A very transformative experience, really, to watch that because, it put a lot of things into perspective for me.
Mhm. Th- Thank you for sharing that. One of the questions that's come up is someone saying, I'm confused. What's the relationship between this topic and QSTP? So, if you
Mm.
don't mind, I'm just going to shed some light on this. At QSTP, we're building a hub that uh, tech founders who care about impact, can convene and uh, draw from that experience of impact to build technologies that can serve humanity. And that's certainly the case with you. This incredible experience drove you to create a startup
Yeah.
in the tech world. So if you can give me just a quick elevator pitch about the startup, and then we can go back in and out of
Sure.
the conversation of your experience.
Yeah, yeah. People might be thinking, yeah, what is this all about? I thought I'm going to a technology discussion.
Yeah,
Here I'm talking about Gaza. Listen, I mean, a lot of people have background stories.
yeah.
What is the thing that motivated people, and so on. For me, walking into this world, this humanitarian world, and then uh, thinking about what are the action points I can take. What are
Hmm.
the things that I can do to change what I have seen? What you see in the war zone really cannot be unseen, and
Right.
it's such a terrible terrible thing on human record and human civilization that these things are allowed to happen. That really, as a people, we need to think about solutions. And we live in a world where technology is at its peak, of course, and how can we
Hmm.
leverage that to benefit mankind? Uh,
Hmm.
I went around the world and I gave a lot of talks and a lot of speeches, and oftentimes at the end of every talk, every speech, someone would come up to me and say, "Hey, doctor, I'm not necessarily a doctor. I work in media, or I'm a lawyer, or I whatever. How can I help? What can I do?"
Hmm.
And I felt I got this question every single time, and I didn't know how to tell every single person how to go and help, right? For me, it was simple. I'm a doctor. Okay, I sign up, I go and I help as a doctor, right? But how do I tell a media person what to do? How do I tell a lawyer what to do? So then I had this idea that how do I bring together those people with ideas and those people that want to effect change? How do
Hmm.
we utilize this huge emotion in people, this giving feeling? How do I channel that? How do I allow people to channel that? And I was giving a talk in Dubai, and I think it was, and I posed this question, and someone came to me in the audience and said, because I said, listen, I have an idea about creating a platform that can
Hmm.
remedy this. And someone came up to me and said, hey, listen, I have an idea. Um, I can help you with this. I'm a UX designer and so on. I said, okay. And we exchanged details. And then fast forward to today, she's the co-founder, right? So,
Hmm.
of Humvol. And Humvol is an idea where we want to bring together this feeling, this desire for change, this burning feeling in a lot of people's hearts, and to bring it together with project leaders, and to create a
Hmm.
very unique space where humans can have an impact, wherever they are in the world, and along many fronts. It doesn't necessarily have to be about Gaza. It might just be,
Hmm.
listen, I have my street is completely um, disheveled, if you like. It's like got garbage everywhere, and we want to
Hmm.
clean it. And it might just be like, I want to put a project out, and then someone can come and say, hey, I want to help, and you put these people together. It's like a matching software, but much more. It's also drawing in on AI principles and advanced technology. But it wants to be a force for good. It wants to be a force for change. And I thought about where I could go to get some help in building this.
Hmm.
And I was in Qatar. I was in
Hmm.
Qatar. I was visiting friends. I was and making more friends. Qatar is a country which has really stood by the Palestinian cause
Hmm.
and has done a lot of great work, peacemaking. And someone said to me, "Hey, there's the Qatar Technology and Science Park. So
Hmm.
Qatar Science and Technology Park. Why don't you get in touch with them?" And so we applied for the incubator program. And we've been accepted onto, this incubator program, which is obviously a very prestigious thing. It's something that we're very proud of, and we hope that, with the skill set, of yourself, for example, you have a great history in this too. We
Yeah.
can learn from yourselves and, have a massive impact. I genuinely believe, and I'm not saying this lightly, I genuinely believe that this platform, if developed properly, and inshallah it will be, it can change the world.
I agree with you. And I feel that some of the questions we're getting, like, how can I volunteer, are a testament to the need for this platform. And obviously, to begin with, you're welcome to come and volunteer and support the mission of building the platform, as well as telling the world about it. But there are a lot of other ways that you will be able to find through the platform in terms of volunteering. One thing that I'd like to bring up, Dr. Tahir, by the United Nations account, there are over 200 million refugees worldwide, and that number is growing at an alarming rate, partly because of the conflicts all over the world. And we
Yeah.
certainly have our share of conflicts here. And the other part is because of climate and climate change. And so you did mention that you will have on the platform the ability for people to volunteer for medical relief, for climate relief, for cleaning up projects in the country. Where are you so far with that development?
Yeah. So we have now, I'm very pleased to say, we have a team of about 20 software designers, UX designers, yeah, psychologists, and so on, who've built the early stages of this platform. It's going to be app-based and also has a web portal as well. It's got two
Mhm.
two sides to it. Of course, it's got the user side and it's got the side that belongs to the sort of NGOs and the charities and the project organizers. Um, the In terms of the technicality, I think what would be great is for us to have maybe a second session where we can bring in
Mhm.
our co-founder to go into the sort of the technical detail of it all. But I think we're about two months away, hopefully, from an MVP. And I don't want to give away too many secrets, but
Yeah.
yeah, but it's we're making good progress. We've been working on it for about 6 to 8 months now, flat out. Team's been doing a phenomenal job. designing, the software and thinking about all the nitty-gritty options that you can find yourself down, thinking about how we can integrate AI, learning models, and so on and so forth.
Mhm.
So there's a lot to it, but hopefully within 2 months, we can get an MVP. And anyone who has experience or has a phenomenal skill set or in this realm, we would welcome to put your name forward and potentially join the team.
Wonderful. And we've given the name of a link to the URL for Humvol, and hopefully you can just find fill out the form, or at least the sign up form there. I wanted to go back to one of the other questions that came through, which was about a movie. I didn't know that there was a full-fledged movie, but apparently there is. And this person is
Yeah.
asking where they can see it other than the film festival that it was featured in.
We did so this movie, it's called The Mission.
Mm.
Uh, in between my second and third missions to Gaza, I was in Egypt. Um, and I was sat amongst friends, and then one of my friends said he has a cousin who's a film director or producer, and he knows that I'm in Egypt, and he really would love to come and speak to me. I said, okay, ahlan wa sahlan. Wants to come and say hello, ahlan wa sahlan. So he comes, and then he talks to me for a few minutes, and he says, stop. He says, I have to start capturing this. He calls his friend. His friend comes with a camera, and they just start rolling.
Mhm.
And then they follow me back to London, and then into Gaza for my third mission, where I spent 4 months inside, and I witnessed the whole, in those 4 months was the ongoing genocide, and then the end of the war at that time, and then my departure and so on. And it was a very powerful documentation of the horror and the reality, but it's a very unique perspective. It was a team that I cannot name to protect them because journalists were being killed,
Mhm.
who basically embedded with me the whole time and recorded 4 months of my life inside Gaza. So that film was actually premiered in Amman Film Festival. And it was very well received. The London premiere is on the 23rd of November at the London Palestine Film Festival. It got sold out, so they put on a second date. I think it's on the 25th of November. Um, and I don't control the movie. It's like it's the movie production team. So they
Mhm.
do all the festivals and they just tell me, okay, can you make it to this date, this film festival, and so on and so forth. So they have an Instagram page, the Mission Documentary. You can follow it and see where they're um advertising it. But yeah, it will be in London. I want to see it beyond London. Yeah, I mean, hopefully it will go, it will spread, because it's more about telling. A lot of these movies are about Palestine. Tell a beautiful tale because they're not limited in time and space, and like it's an actual movie, right? But
Right.
this is a snapshot of 4 months, a reality documentary. It's very different. It's very heavy hitting. It's very powerful. And it also has the story of Mariam, the little girl who lost her arm in a bombing, and I replanted her arm. And the challenges that we experienced afterwards. There's footage of that experience that we've never released, never shown on social media. And yeah, I hope that
I
people
mean,
will be inspired by it as well. That's the
I
idea.
mean,
The
I
idea
think
is inspiring.
inspiration is definitely happening as we speak. I think there is no shortage of inspiration in the journey that you've taken. I think what I'd love to maybe unpack is a little bit of how that uh, journey impacted your resilience and your thought process to persevere and keep coming back, and how that is very similar to what founders, really great founders, have in them. It's that resilience to continue, and also the clarity of vision of what they want to do. Um, you know, Tell us a little bit about some of those, experiences. Like when you were in Gaza, did you have moments where you stopped and said, "It's just incredible, all of this. There's so much to be done, and can tech do it?" Or did it just come as an afterthought later?
When I was in Gaza, it's very, I have a lot of moments where, especially when I was in the emergency rooms of those hospitals uh, where I felt we were drowning in blood, really, and in death. And I remember thinking, man, honestly, God help us. It was really difficult. And it's hard to think about tech solutions in that environment because every form of life was extinct or becoming extinct. You had no buildings, you had no technology, the infrastructure was destroyed, our systems were turned into paper-based and so on. But I knew that I couldn't be, I couldn't function like that. So we tried to smuggle in some phones and some iPads, and we built a sort of a cloud-based system to manage our patients.
Mhm.
I had a bunch of medical students and junior doctors, some of whom have recently graduated 2 days ago. So I congratulate them. It's an opportunity to thank them again as well. And we built a patient database. We were the only team, my team, were the only team that used that technology. So we'd see a patient, we'd take a photograph on the iPad, upload it, keep a medical record, and it changed the way that we could deliver care. And immediately
Mhm.
for me, it was an obvious way and another example of how technology improves not only our lives, but our ability to deliver healthcare or whatever that might be to improve our
Mhm.
lives. It was immediately and obviously different to everyone that my team worked very differently because we relied on that tech, or as limited as it was.
Mhm.
And from that tech, we were able to then go on and do research. And we published a scientific paper in the Journal of Plastic and Reconstructive Surgery, which was a very high impact journal and a very reputable journal from work that we did in Gaza. And they were, even the guys, the editors, were like, this is phenomenal that you were able to gather this data in a genocide. And that's an example of how you can manipulate tech to serve humanity. I've always been the type to look at problems and think about how I can fix them.
Mhm.
Even in medicine, you have, for many doctors, you have two limbs of sort of parallel with your career. One limb is audit and management, sort of clinical governance. Another one is research. I was very, very heavy, excuse me, on medical management and that sort of thing on clinical governance because I always wanted to improve our systems and so on and so forth throughout my entire training. So it wasn't limited to Gaza. Um, but it's definitely something that I think creates durability. You're going to encounter a lot of people that say no, it's not possible.
Yeah.
Excuse me. Or you're going to encounter a lot of people say, hey, can you be bothered to do that? And just stick to pen and paper. It's just easier. But it's easier for the short term. But the long term, it's pain, right? And it's about that mindset. Is that, okay, well, if I introduce these systems now, the birthing process is difficult, sure, but the long term gain is so much more exponentially greater. You cannot really
Mhm.
compare. And when you're approached, so for example, with Humvol, this is no small task, right? I'm not
Mhm.
under any false impression. This is a huge task, and I'm doing it in conjunction with many other things. A lot of my humanitarian work is still ongoing. Um,
You run a hospital in Baghdad, is it? Or you're working in a Baghdad hospital as well?
No, I work with my humanitarian organization, but
Uh,
I'm traveling
um,
all over the world. And for
uh,
example, I was just in Amman, and we received a number of severely injured children from Gaza with their companions, and embedded them into the hospital systems, and took care of them, and made sure their surgical plans were correct, and reviewed them, and ward rounded on them, and so on and so forth. But I have a dream to build a hospital in Baghdad. That's my
oh, okay.
my next goal.
Amazing.
Yeah, my next goal is also building a major trauma center in Baghdad, inshallah. Um,
Inshallah.
but and then if I think about, Humvol, really, it's not only for necessarily my organization, but it's also for every other NGO, every other charitable organization, every other project leader, or it doesn't necessarily need to be restricted to limited to charity, but it's about creating a solution around where I want to work. This is in my mind.
Yeah.
This is all linked. I mean, and it's not something, out in, a really wild, outlandish idea. No, it's very much linked to how I envisage I can build something in the future that can have a massive impact on humanity. Because I'm tired. I'm tired of waiting on others. I'm tired of expecting change to occur. And I think society and people need to wake up and realize that really change occurs when you take on responsibility as a person, when you create self-accountability. Until that time arrives, you'll be waiting for nothing. I mean, nothing's gonna happen. You have to be that change.
So, I mean, you're describing the typical social entrepreneur. Those are people like yourself who see a challenge and feel compelled to address it first and foremost. And the added value is you've also partnered with someone who's incredibly skilled from a technology perspective and from a product development perspective. So, you've got a great recipe for success, but how do you manage as someone who is extremely driven and do what you think of doing, a co-founder relationship with the person you've recently met? How's the dynamic within that relationship?
Yeah. Uh, Thankfully, Neda is a very easygoing person. And she's very understanding that sometimes I can be, if I'm, for example, in the surgical mission, my hours for Humvol are going to be very limited, but she can take the initiative. And she just
Mhm.
asks me the really relevant questions, the directional questions. But she has a lot of initiative, and also surrounded herself with a great team who are very
Mhm.
enthused, motivated. I'll give you an example. One of our team members, her father is sadly very recently passed away, and
Like,
Allah yarhamu. And the next day, she wanted to go back to working with Humvol because she
mhm.
said, this was something that she really believed in, and her father really believed in as well. That this was an opportunity for her to create change. And I said, look, you got to take the time for mourning. Please take the time for mourning. But it was the that feeling that her and her father, God rest his soul, both believed in this project, and they felt that this was something that it was an opportunity to change the world around them. And that's what it is. It's Annetta is one of those people that they truly believe in this. You can't buy that. When there's belief, that's a real huge motivator. And I'm very fortunate that this team all carries that sentiment. But it's been very, actually, surprisingly, it's been very easy working with those guys. So we've not had a lot of, if any, friction. And they're very adaptable. And when I've given some suggestions about what this project might look like, there are some details um, that, of course, it's difficult to share right now. But there are some details. But when I've suggested things, they've accepted that, because they understand that that there is a vision. There's a long, big vision here, and they're working towards that. I don't know if that makes sense to you. It makes sense to me.
It absolutely
Fine.
does.
Yeah.
It absolutely does. But and you've described already indirectly the recipe of a successful founder and a successful team. And that's just wonderful. So we've talked about your resilience. We've talked about finding a complementary co-founder who
Mhm.
you support each other rather than compete with each other for that position.
Yeah.
You've also talked about deriving an incredible idea from an inspirational journey where you feel it in your DNA. Like you feel like this is something that I can't live without. I'm going to wake up and go to sleep thinking about it. So that's also an incredible asset. And then you're also building with a team for the future. So it's AI driven. It's based on real data that you've attained in your journey. And then the cream on the top, or the icing on the top, as they say, is the fact that you are an incredible advocate and you already have that platform. And so being able to get all of the volunteers that you can by speaking to your audiences, it's a great recipe for the success. Inshallah, we'll wish you the very best. I wanted to see if we had some questions from the audience that we would like to address. If I can ask the team to just tee them up, if we have anything that we haven't talked about that the audience has requested. Let's see. If I may ask, what do you think about the attitude of the Islamic world? I'd like to stay away from political and kind of religious changes. I feel like maybe we can focus more on what are the positive things that you're seeing happening across the world in terms of the humanity and the rallying for that.
One thing I've learned with all the travels across the world is that people, really irrespective of nationality or creed, are inherently good people. And we have some
Oh, we have a QSTP fellow who just
guests.
recently joined us on camera. Yeah, this is the background team. That's fun.
Okay.
Yeah.
Across the world are inherently good people.
Yeah.
And yeah, go on.
Well, I was just going to say, and some of those good people are actually asking you, how do they apply to work for
Yeah.
Humvol? So, yeah.
Yeah, so the point I was trying to make was that in terms of, what gives me hope is that a lot of the people fighting for example, the Palestinian cause have come from European nations.
Mhm.
Uh, and they're not bound to the Palestinian cause neither by blood, neither by religion, but by a sense of humanity. And the Palestinian cause has really awoken that in the world. It's really awoken that feeling of, that we cannot accept as a people that our world will be darkened by the outlandish and the outright evil that occurred there. Um,
Mhm.
and there is a struggle going on now for public opinion. Right? You can see that there is a battle for purchasing social media platforms, and they're trying to change the narrative through manipulation and so on. And uh, we have to stay focused and we have to stay driven, motivated. It's very easy to have this feeling of hopelessness and being
Mhm.
bleak, because once Gaza was seemingly sort of over, Sudan popped up, but Sudan had been
Yeah.
going on for a while, but it just that our attention turned to it. And then the Congo also has difficulties, and many people across the world are suffering. So you could either be someone who just um, uh, you know complains, or you can ask yourself, hey, if not me, then who? And
Exactly.
and one way is to get involved with Humvol. One way is to.
Absolutely. And thankfully, we have a lot of people. We just want to remind everyone that you can go to the Humvol website, and our colleagues will put it back in so that you can see it and sign up to support in any way. I did see someone ask a question about the foundation, and I'm assuming they mean Qatar Foundation, which is the parent organization for Qatar Science and Technology Park. This foundation has been around for 30 years. It's done incredible work across the world in education, in health, in engaging youth in positive activities, sports, and otherwise. And we also have a number of research institutes like our AI Research Institute that I'm hoping Humvol will also collaborate with. Within Qatar Science and Technology Park, we run an incubator, and that's the program that Dr. Tahir said their startup joined with the aim of helping them scale and inshallah become a unicorn one day, both in impact as well as in financial return. And that's something that we care deeply about, is incubating companies that have an incredible drive for impact, social impact, climate impact, and working with the likes of Dr. Tahir and his co-founder Nada. I'm very excited to have them be part of this ecosystem. And on this ecosystem front, uh, tell us, like, as you go around and speak to people, uh, what are the sorts of characters that you're seeing in terms of their outside of doctors? What are some of the skill sets that you're coming across uh, that are complementing you on your journey?
Actually, a very varied amount, and sometimes it's about me. I have to impart sometimes some of the vision, and then people
Mhm.
can say, actually, you know what, I can slot into that. You know what, I can fit into that part. It was as simple as me speaking the other day about my goal about the hospital, and in the follow-up sort of breakout area, people came up to me, I'd love to help and so on. I had a bunch of investors come up to me. I had a
Mhm.
bunch of, CEOs come up to me. I had someone who designs living twin cities, in terms of, this design, for example, of the hospital come up to me. And all this, they just, volunteer their services. Hey, we want to be part of this solution. We want to be part of this project. We believe in you. And that comes from being able to inspire. If you're somebody who has, not that I'm saying that I walk the walk, but in the brief, loosely, if you've put some action to your words and you've gone
Mhm.
out there, people will be more likely to believe in you. So sometimes, I suppose, thinking about people who want to do startups, right? I'm not a business person, although I find myself in this space. But how do I go about creating credibility and someone and being a person that others can invest in? Well, it's you got to be someone that has some action to your name, right?
Mhm.
You got to have proved yourself. You got to show that you really are a believer in your cause, and be able to inspire. We obviously had this question about, what is the purpose of, we had this question earlier, what are we talking about? I thought I'm at the QSTP, right? Well, sometimes it depends on, that story, and it depends on creating a feeling in a human being. It's very powerful. It's very powerful. Yes, we're governed by our minds, but we're human. And sometimes it takes, something, a jolt in someone's heart to switch something on in their minds. And
Mhm.
I'm seeing that. I'm seeing that with all the varied personnel. I have, for example, very successful financial investment
Mhm.
advisors throughout the world who are being my international investment sort of advisors.
That's wonderful.
Also, so
Yeah.
to try
They
to
can
raise
help on your
money for me.
startup, right? They can help on
Yeah,
your startup as
exactly.
well. So
Yeah,
I
yeah,
have a few additional questions. I think one of
yeah.
them is more geared towards QSTP. We are
Yeah.
designing earlier stage programs for the person, Judy, who asked about that. And if you want to put your contact details or reach out through our website on the incubation part, one of my colleagues, Kareem, will work with you to introduce you to this early stage program. We have another request from um, an anonymous person who's saying, when is Humvol going to be helping Iraqis? And have you decided to settle permanently in Iraq?
That's a very good question about my, where I decided to settle. Look, I was born in the UK, and I lived all my entire life in the UK. I trained there. I finished my training there, um, and it was home, right? But uh, there were- there were incidents in the UK which left a little bit of a sour taste in my mouth as a person. You know, there were incidents also of being discriminated against. There were incidents of being the subject of racism. Though, you know, and of course, you know, you don't generalize, but those things do sort of make you think. And after Gaza, I thought about it long and hard, and I said, you know, where do I want to be based now? Um, Given, you know, everything that I've seen, everything that I've experienced. Do I want to go back to a country, you know, and I don't blame the people. I mean, the people are great, but as a nation that has or and contributes to the genocide of our people, or do I want to return to our lands, our, you know, where we're actually from, and go and be a part of the solution there? I see it much like, you know, the analogy I give is, you know, it's a bit like somebody who's sick, right? Who's overcome with a feeling of illness. I either have two ways of trying to make this person better. Either I can embolden their immunity, working on the inside, or I can work to sort of deflect the viruses. Um, and yeah, that was in a simple terms, you know, me being on living in the UK, maybe I'm the guy that swats away the bugs and the viruses, right? But I thought I need to be a part of the solution that emboldens our immunity because then if we get so strong, then nothing can affect us from the outside. So
Well, I
I moved to
really, I think that's a
Baghdad.
great kind of answer and conclusion to our talk. I'm very happy that the experience that you've had is going to enrich so many lives because you're giving hopefully millions of people the ability to connect with causes that they care about
Inshallah, that's the
and
goal.
volunteer in. And alhamdulillah that you're in Iraq and you're doing the good work there.
Thank
Inshallah, we'll also see you here in Qatar and on
you.
your
I'd love to
journey
see you again soon. Yes,
uh,
thank
with Humvol. It's been such a pleasure speaking with you. It's a very humbling experience, and I imagine Humvol is part of how that came up. And we'd love to host you again with your co-founder Nada to unpack Humvol more and
you.
hear from her because I'm sure she's had a
Right,
tremendous journey as well with you. Thank you for
inshallah.
joining us
Thank you.
on
Thank you
Impact
so
Enter.
much. Thank you, guys. Thank
Assalamu
you all for
alaikum.
listening as well. Thank you so much. Thank you.
It's our
Ma
pleasure. Ma salama.